Hyundai Tucson is one of the more style-forward entries in the compact crossover segment. I would put it up there with the Toyota RAV4 and the new Kia Sportage, though frankly I'm not a big fan of that front-end design. But this is also one of the more versatile entries too, because it has 3 powertrain offerings, 2 of them are hybrids, and now it has a new design theme to go along with the existing standard look and the N-line treatment. This 2023 Tucson XRT is the rugged-looking one. For this XRT trim, Hyundai takes the design elements of the existing Tucson that make it such an interesting looking car and gives them, again, a more rugged and blacked out appearance. For example, the chrome strip that runs the length of the vehicle just below the roofline, which normally has a bright chrome look, has a dark smoky finish here and gives us that trendy floating roof design, especially in lighter paint colors. We also have 19-inch alloy wheels that are all black, but they run on the same size tires as the normal Tucson, 235/55s. However, these are Michelin Primacy all-season tires. As you can see as well, we have running boards, which honestly you don't really need because this car isn't exactly high off the road. I found myself just bumping into them more than actually using them. We also have chunkier body cladding around the wheel wells. We have the option of a roof rail crossbar that it is a little bit more intense than what you would get from a factory or an accessory option. And then we also have matte black finishes to the front and rear fascias. I really like this look, but I'm definitely not alone in the marketplace, which explains why Hyundai has brought this trim level to the Tucson. Let me know if you like the XRT look or if you prefer the standard Tucson look more. Up front, we have automatic full LED headlights with automatic high beams, as well as amber LED turn signals. I really love how Hyundai continues to allow this to have the integrated DRLs that, once turned off, look like part of the grille inserts themselves. It's a very clever touch that you also find on the Santa Cruz, and to an extent, the recently refreshed Hyundai Palisade. The XRT trim is not any larger than a typical Tucson, but it is the heaviest if you equip it with all-wheel drive, 3,682 pounds. Ground clearance also remains the same at 7.1 inches. At 182.3 inches long with a 108.5-inch wheelbase, this Tucson is longer than a CX-5 or a RAV4, but shorter than a Tiguan and the Tucson's platform mate, the recently redesigned Kia Sportage. In other markets, there are short and long wheelbase versions of both of these vehicles. Here in North America, we only get the long wheelbase versions, and that has paid in dividends because these are some of the largest vehicles in their class on the inside. As with the rest of the Tucson lineup, save for the base trim level, we have full LED taillights, the full width light bar, as well as the Fang style lights here on the side. If you look up closely, there is a cool crystallized finish to them, as well as these triangles and other geometric patterns up here and in the fascia below. But down there is where you're going to find the incandescent amber turn signals. Let me know what you think about the turn signals being way down there. I personally think it's the smart and appropriate choice because if I remember correctly, in driving school, they teach you that if you're in stop and go traffic, you should always stay far enough behind the vehicle in front of you that you can see the bottom of the bumper. So if you can't see the Tucson's turn signals when you're parked behind it or you're in traffic behind it, you're probably a little too close. There's also the same clean design to the rear glass here. Where the windshield wiper could be, it's actually tucked up under the spoiler. That's how I prefer it to be in most crossovers, and I'm glad Hyundai does it here. Standard active safety features for the Tucson include automatic emergency braking with pedestrian detection, as well as blind spot monitor, a driver attention warning, lane keeping assist with lane departure warning, a rear cross traffic alert with braking, safe exit assist, adaptive cruise control, and a rear occupancy alert system. Optional equipment includes the blind spot camera system, which actually shows you a camera view of what's in your blind spot on the left or the right, straight in front of you in the instrument cluster, highway drive assist, navigation-based cruise control, reverse collision avoidance, front and rear parking sensors, the smart park feature from all those commercials, and a 360-degree surround view camera. Powering the XRT trim is the 2.5-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, producing 187 horsepower and 178 pound-feet of torque. Even though this is the rugged model, you still have your choice between front and all-wheel drive. Those will give you the same fuel economy figures as the regular gas Tucsons, 28 miles per gallon combined and 25 miles per gallon combined respectively via a 14.3 gallon fuel tank. Towing is rated at 2,000 pounds, but that is considering you have trailer braking enabled on your trailer. Front seat comfort in the Tucson XRT is surprisingly good. These high-tech trimmed seats are shaped so that somebody of my height and build can sink into them comfortably and be set for a long road trip. They are also heated on this trim and 8-way power adjustable with 2-way lumbar support on this side, but only 4-way manually adjustable over on the passenger side. We also have a leather wrap steering wheel that is not heated, but it does manually tilt and telescope, but it also is missing paddle shifters, which actually surprises me a little bit. The back seat is also not a bad place to put passengers. I've got plenty of leg and headroom. That is, of course, where I was sitting at the driver's seat. I've got 3 to 4 inches of space between my knees and the seat back, and plenty of foot space below the seat. There's a slight hump in the center of the floor here, but the rest of the floor has a good distance between it and the seat bottom, so your knees are not going to be too high up off the ground. Because the XRT trim does not come with a panoramic moonroof, headroom is maximized at 39.5 inches. That's tied with the Toyota RAV4 and 1/10 of an inch more than the brand new Kia Sportage, and better than pretty much everything else in this class. These seats also recline pretty far back, and we have a center armrest here with 2 small cup holders, 2 air vents, which is really nice to see, as well as 2 USB Type-A ports down there in the console. Cargo space is also generous in the Tucson, and thanks to Hyundai's Smart Access liftgate, I can keep the key in my pocket and my feet planted on the ground, and the liftgate will open automatically for me. We've got a dual level load floor here, which if you put it in its lowest position, you get 41.2 cubic feet of space. Down here, there is also a spare tire that is 17 inches in diameter. And once you use these handy levers to fold down the second row, you get a whopping 80.3 cubic feet of space back here. That dwarfs the RAV4, the new Sportage, Forester, Rogue, pretty much everything else in the class. That's also larger than the Hyundai Santa Fe, which is technically half to a full-size vehicle class above this. The inside of the Tucson XRT is a mix of inclusions and exclusions from other trim levels of the Tucson lineup, but I'll get to that in just a moment. Starting off, we have these black High-Tex trimmed seats. That's basically cloth, I guess just a higher quality or more sustainable cloth material. They have a height adjustable headrest, height adjustable seatbelt, and are heated. Over here on the door panel, we have a mixture of materials. Everything from here up is either soft touch plastic or injection molded plastic, and of course also this piano black strip here. The door handles have a nice and metallic feel to them, but everything down here is going to be a hard plastic. This has the standard sound system, so no branding down there at all. But as you can see, my long water bottle here fits in that water bottle holder just fine. Over on the dashboard, we have a harder but still somewhat injection molded plastic there. The glove box is a decent size, definitely pretty deep and wide enough to fit a small tablet. And then up here we have the same diffuse air conditioning vents here. So that is a main vent, but then in here, if you press the diffuse button on the center stack here, which I'll get to in a moment, these little dots will open up and allow air to smoothly and less, I guess, harshly come at you instead of having a direct blow from the actual air vent. That is a nice feature. Here we have this fabric treatment right here, which you'll find even on the top trim. So it's nice to see that here. It wraps all the way around to the door. And then, of course, the center stack here, which this one has the smaller infotainment screen, but that means, as it typically means with Hyundai and Kia products, that this one has wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, which of course I currently have running right there for you. It easily integrates, it's very easy to use, but the regular Hyundai system is also very easy to use as well. It doesn't have the most modern look to it as compared to the larger 10.25-inch screen you can get on the upper trims, but I do like that they have these volume knobs here that you actually rub up and down instead of actually turn like an actual tuning knob. You've got that over there for the tune and track button as well. Going down here, we have your automatic climate control. This is a dual zone automatic climate control with 3 different levels of automatic settings. And of course, there's that diffuse button again, and your toggle switches for the temperature for the individual sides. Down below, we have a Qi wireless charge pad, which is nice to see on this trim level instead of it not having that at all. So you can wirelessly charge and run Apple CarPlay and Android Auto at the same time. And it fits my Google Pixel 6 Pro just fine. We've got a USB port right there if you want to plug in and do wired CarPlay or Android Auto. We've got a 12-volt outlet as well as a charge port for a USB-A equipped device. Now, unlike upper trims of the gas-only Tucson, we actually have a traditional shifter here with a button on the back that you use to actually engage it and pull it back. And then if you look up closely here, we have a bunch of different buttons. For the all-wheel drive system lock right here, you can press that and that will keep distribution always coming to the rear axle. We've got a downhill assist control, your auto brake hold, electronic parking brake, the button to access your rear view camera, but there is no 360-degree surround camera, so if you push that, you're only going to get a view out of the back. And then this is the toggle for your engine start-stop system. You also have your drive mode selector right here. You have 4 different settings, but I'll show you that when we get to the instrument cluster. Then right here we have a row of buttons that are all gloss black in terms of their material, but the 2 important ones that you actually have are your heated seat buttons with 3 levels. Finally, here in the center, we have a glove box, which isn't super wide or deep, and it doesn't have any charge ports or lights inside. Up top, one major omission is there is no option for a sunroof of any size, so if you want something like that, you're going to have to go to another trim level. Otherwise, we have your Hyundai Blue Link button, your SOS button, and your overhead lights, as well as the button to activate the lights when you open the doors. Then we have the newer Hyundai steering wheel, which you'll find on the Sonata, as well as the refreshed Palisade. I do like this design because you have a bunch of different places you can grab if you're the kind of person that likes to use the lower portions of the steering wheel here. Your controls here on the left are for voice control, your radio, or I guess your media selection, and your volume, phone, as well as your programmable star button. So you can make that activate a couple of different options. You'll have to change it in the infotainment system, but it's nice to have that one-touch access right here. Horn, of course, right there in the center. I do like this circular design with this metal finish here. On the right here, this button controls the pages you see on the instrument cluster. Then you, of course, have the rest of the cruise control buttons. This does have lane keep assist, but you have to actually activate it every time you get into the car. So you press that button and a steering wheel light will pop up in the instrument cluster there. That basically prevents you, at least around town, from bopping out of your lane. This button is when you have cruise control activated and you want to distance yourself from the car in front of you. And of course, these actually turn on and off the system. This button controls what's in that center part of the LCD instrument cluster, but there are no paddle shifters on this steering wheel at all, and the steering wheel is not heated. Unlike some newer GM products that I've driven, they actually give you an all-wheel drive meter if you have all-wheel drive equipped in your car. So right here, when you're driving, you'll see those lines pop up and down showing how much torque is going to those wheels. And I really appreciate that. That is actually the screen that I leave it on because it is fun to watch when that is happening. At least it is for me. These are your other screens like your driver assistance settings, speed, auto stop, fuel economy, things like that. This is a nice modern feature, and even though there is no bin above it to deflect light, it has a coating to it that prevents any sort of glare, and I haven't had a problem with that at all this week. On the road, the first thing to note about the Tucson XRT is its uncanny similarity to the other gas Tucson models, and that's because we are not riding on wider or knobbier tires, nor is the ground clearance any higher. If you get one of these with the roof rail crossbars, you may hear a little bit more wind noise, but because this one doesn't have it and because we don't have a glass roof, this one is very quiet. This Tucson weighs in at 3,682 pounds. Now with the all-wheel drive lock button engaged as well as the sport driving mode, I was able to achieve 8.76 seconds in my 0 to 60 run. Now that's not the fastest thing in the world, and if you want a faster Tucson, the hybrid and plug-in hybrids will definitely do a bit better, but this wasn't as sluggish as I was expecting it to be. Around town driving, it is just fine. The 8-speed automatic does a good job of being where it needs to be. There are some times where it's not in the right gear and you do have to wait a second or two for it to engage and really give you that acceleration you want, but honestly, for the average shopper, I never found myself complaining at all about this being underpowered, so don't worry about that, but definitely test drive this back to back with a hybrid or plug-in hybrid and see if you really want that extra power or if you really need it. But you will get better fuel economy, which I will cover in a second. When going back from 60 to 0 miles per hour, the Tucson XRT took me 120 feet to get the job done, and that's pretty competitive, actually near the top of the class. A regular Tucson without a hybrid or plug-in hybrid powertrain can do it in a little bit shorter of a distance, but this one weighs a little bit more than those, of course. And plus, when you are braking around town, the brake feel itself, the pedal, is not too firm, it's not too soft, right there in the middle, Goldilocks style, and when you are coming to a stop, it does it in a smooth and linear action. I found the Tucson to be pretty competent in its handling. You can actually have a good bit of fun with this car. It doesn't lose grip as soon as I expected to, and its limits are a lot higher than I thought they were going to be. Now, if it's a more planted feel you're looking for, something with a lower center of gravity, the batteries of the hybrid and the plug-in hybrid models are definitely going to appeal to you a little bit more, but it's worth a test drive because, again, this is not that bad. It's really in the areas of fuel economy and power where those models should automatically be at the top of your list compared to this, but this is still a surprisingly good package. Ride quality is also an area that I was super surprised by. This is a little bit smoother than something like a RAV4 or a Nissan Rogue. These tires, these all-season tires, do a really good job at soaking up the larger bumps. There are a lot of really harsh potholes and things around the neighborhood I'm driving in that normally you would have to kind of brace for. This car does a very good job at making them a little bit less jarring. And remember, when you're looking at the competitive set, really pretty much every car in this class is going to have a less than ideal ride quality than something with a much higher price tag. So when you're comparing it to those, this Tucson does a very good job. This definitely has a better ride quality than something like a Toyota RAV4. At 50 miles per hour, I measured 65 decibels in here, which is both impressive and tangible, as I had passengers in here throughout my week who all commented on how quiet they thought the car was. So that's pretty cool. Now, if you get an XRT trim with those roof rail crossbars, for some reason this one doesn't have them, but if you do get those, you might hear some more wind noise coming from above. But again, like I said, you can't get a glass roof on here, so the fact that we have metal separating you from what's out there means there's more sound deadening. Now, when it comes to the sound of the engine, if you keep things below 4,000 RPMs, it's not really a problem, but get above that, and that's where you're definitely going to hear more of an unpleasant whine to the engine. It sounds a little bit better than the 2.5 liter four-cylinder in the Toyota RAV4, but not as cool or as mature as the new 1.5 liter turbocharged three-cylinder in the Nissan Rogue. Now, the EPA estimates that fuel economy for an all-wheel drive XRT trim will come in right at 25 miles per gallon combined, and that is exactly what I saw this week on my 40-mile test loop around Atlanta. It's a good mix of city and highway driving, but I got right on the mark. I did have to be a little bit light with the throttle at times, but I was able to hit the number. If you want the best fuel economy, you're going to want to leave it out of the all-wheel drive lock mode. So you're going to want to make sure the front axle is a little bit disconnected from the rear so you don't have that extra drag going on. And you're going to want to make sure you're in the smart drive mode. That mode makes it so that the system can decide how it should have the reaction times and how the throttle response should be. And so if you want the best fuel economy, you're going to want to keep it in smart mode. The Hyundai Tucson XRT gets high points from me for its sporty and rugged design. If you like the way the regular Tucson looks, but you want it to look a little bit more macho and a little bit more off-road oriented, you're definitely going to like the XRT trim. Also, driving this trim is a very comfortable and quiet experience, especially considering the competitive set. It's very smooth and the cabin noise is very competitively low for cars in this category. Also, because we have an XRT trim, we don't have the larger 10.25-inch infotainment screen, which means you get wireless phone integration. So if you want to use wireless Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, you're going to want to pick the XRT trim. And then if you're looking to maximize cargo space in the two-row compact crossover segment, look no further than the Tucson. This has one of, if not the largest cargo capacities in the entire segment. So if you want to go big on the inside but not super big on the outside, definitely choose the XRT trim of the Tucson, or really any other Tucson for that matter, because they're all very, very big on the inside. And while some people might complain about the power delivery, or I guess the lack of power in the naturally aspirated four-cylinder that is standard on the XRT trim, I honestly found for around town driving it was perfectly fine. It was never disagreeable. It's not as gritty sounding of an engine as some of the competitors, but there are some engines that will maybe feel a little bit better than this, like the turbocharged three-cylinder from Nissan definitely has a more V6-like vibe. So if you're looking for that, maybe go elsewhere. Also, if you're looking for better fuel economy, you're definitely going to want to look elsewhere, or at least look at the Hyundai Tucson Hybrid or plug-in hybrid. They will do much better, and they'll give you more power under the hood. And for more of a personal qualm that I have, the XRT trim is not available with a sunroof of any size at all, and that's sad because I like the rugged good looks, but I love being able to look out the ceiling. So if you want one, you're not going to be able to get the other. You'll have to upgrade to a higher trim to get a sunroof. And finally, to nip this in the bud, the XRT trim is just an appearance package, so don't expect to go really far off the beaten path. This doesn't really make any mechanical or physical upgrades over the standard Tucsons, but it's just a visual pack that makes you feel like you can do those things. Now, when it comes to comparing pricing for the Tucson and its main rivals, notice that the Hyundai and Kia twins both stay under $40,000 even fully loaded. Now, if you look at the RAV4, that goes all the way up to $42,700. The Nissan Rogue goes to $40,610. Keep in mind that these prices are just for the gas-only options in these lineups. So if you want the hybrid of the RAV4, the Tucson, or the Sportage, expect prices to be a little bit higher than what you're seeing here. There is not currently a hybrid Rogue, so no need to worry about that. But that's where I want to say again that if you want the best fuel economy, you're going to want to look at those hybrids. If you want the most performance, you're going to want to look at those hybrids because they all have much more power than any of the gas options here, except for the Rogue, which has more torque than any of these options. But again, it's not going to be as fuel efficient as any of the hybrids. I will say the Rogue, probably in terms of look and feel and maybe tactile feel, has the nicest interior in this bunch. The RAV4 has been around for the longest, and its interior is showing its age, and it definitely doesn't feel as high quality even at the top level. But the Tucson definitely has the most modern looking interior, but it is overrun with piano black plastic. So if you don't like piano black plastic, you might want to look at the competitors, especially the RAV4. Now, the RAV4 has a TRD off-road trim that is going to give a few upgrades that will allow it to best the Tucson off-road, but if you want the better feeling interior and you want the possibly better driving dynamics and the smoother sounding and feeling engine, I would look elsewhere. And the Nissan Rogue doesn't really have any off-road oriented trim, one that is an appearance package or an actual upgrade package. So if you want that at all, the Rogue is not going to want to be on your list. So that's going to be my take on the Hyundai Tucson XRT. Let me know in the comments below if you think an XRT trim is worth, getting rid of all the bells and whistles. Do you think Hyundai should offer a premium package, something that gives it more features than the regular XRT does? Because in my opinion, it's missing out on a few things. Or do you think it's fine as is and you would get it just for those rugged looks alone? Hit that like button if you love two-row compact crossovers. Hit the subscribe button if you like detailed car reviews. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. We also have the Auto Buyer's Guide podcast channel and the EV Buyer's Guide channel, as well as Alex on Autos for all the written reviews. Until next time, thank you for watching.